Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group and the Kansas City Business Association. And today we have a special guest. I've been knowing her for some time, but I've been knowing her husband even longer. I guess in excess about 7 or 8 years. And Miss Stephenie Smith, how you doing, Stephenie?
Hello there, Carlos. It's great to be with you today. Thanks for the invite.
It's great to have you on, and we had a little off-camera conversation where I really got to know you, but I really wish some of that would have been recorded. But we're going to rewind now. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. I always say go back to kindergarten because I learned a lot about you in that conversation, and I want my audience to know a lot about you. Run it down.
Run it back. You talk about going back to kindergarten. I think it's important to say that I stand on the shoulders of my great grandparents and their children, my grandparents, their children, my parents. And then, of course, all my elders and mentors that helped pave the way. My family was able to build identity and community and legacy in Oklahoma. My parents then were educated as their parents were at Langston University. And so this legacy of education, formal and informal, and valuing both were came through their kind of hearts and teachings to me and my sisters. But grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. Shout out to the dot. In a time where, we talked about earlier the power of community and the nurturing effect. And so I got all of that in Wyandotte County. Great public school education, matriculated through the USD 500. My mom, longtime educator, formal educator within the school district, but also a community educator and advocate. She worked and served in a lot of different communities, especially in the summertime. And so my sister and I were always in tow, being able to learn with community and walk with community. So those were really great learning experiences. My dad is by discipline, an agriculturalist. He comes from a very agrarian family and community, like most Black folk. When you really get to the origin. And so just to really be able to learn from my father about the earth and its treasures, how we are stewards. A lot of those things, my parents, I'm grateful they're still around and both retired, but continue to get a chance to learn, and my children get to learn from them. So yeah, grew up at Kansas City, Kansas, graduated from Sumner. I also have to say I had some good education at A Street Baptist Church. I learned a lot about myself, my culture, my voice. Really got a chance to learn the power of my voice through the church. And then went on to Fisk University in Nashville, where able to, continue the learning and building of mentorship. And, went on to study at Vanderbilt and University of Tennessee, where I completed my master's in social work. So my discipline is in social work, but I think my work has always really been nestled in fighting the effects of poverty and oppression. And I don't think any of that can happen without naming and addressing racism and inequity within systems. And so today, I am able to manage a change management firm called Sophic Solutions. So we help organizations navigate change through an equity lens. I do this work in partnership with my husband and life partner, Dr. Rodney Smith.
My man.
Yeah, I know it took me a long time to get to that. But we've been able to build a life together 22 plus years. And that is a blessing in and of itself. But yeah, so we were based here in Kansas City, and we serve all over the country. And we've got two young adults that's out there doing their thing. Our daughter graduated from Howard University, and our son is gearing up for his next generation. So that was a lesson in a nutshell. I went back further than kindergarten, but
Nah,
that's
that hold it. That's what
thing.
our people want to know. I'm getting ready to ask you another question as it related to family,
Mhm.
because we talked about your son playing baseball. He's a lightweight star, and Mr. Nelson got things all mixed up and thought we had this Zoom about a week ago, and they were down in Florida. And tell our audience what was happening with your son down there in Florida.
Well, we always tell the kids every good place you go, you belong. And so, as Kai is navigating what his college environment will be like, he was on a good college visit to good old FAMU. So, we were excited. I mean, the Rattler Nation, shout out, beautiful campus. Dr. Robinson and his team, the administration of FAMU, doing a phenomenal job of once again creating a institution that breathes life into our young people and creates a safe space. And so my son is an engineering interest prospect. And so he's doing some engineering work here in his early college program. FAMU, in partnership with Florida State, has an amazing engineering program. So he's made a visit to FAMU. He's made a visit to North Carolina A&T and some other universities. So we're excited. This is a really I don't know, blessed, exciting, I don't know, time where life is changing and these kids is growing up. So we're just trying to do our best.
Tell me this: what has been some of the challenges you have had as a black company? Uh, and you know another thing I want to say before I forget, because my brain be
What?
you are very well spoken.
Oh, okay. Thank
And
you.
all while we were talking off camera, that kept going through my mind. Boy, this woman is really well spoken, well versed, and from my perspective, understands the universe and how it
Oh,
works. That's even more important. And when I'm mentioning the universe, according to what's happening in our community, I think you have definitely hit the nail on the head. And you just, as you said in previous conversations, I told you I'm Mr. Ugly. You said you are very hopeful and you are very positive about our community and engagement. And I
mm.
think before I let that get off the top of my head, I wanted to let you know that's how I feel.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you honoring my, my thinking around it. And I want to, I think there's a distinction. I think there is room for both. I think critical analysis is extremely important. And critical analysis is different than being negative, right? Being able to speak truth to power and name things. And we also have to steer clear of toxic positivity. And I'll say, I think my words were that I'm optimistic, but I think we also have to be careful of toxic positivity that tells us that nothing is wrong and everything is glorious, right? And no matter what, we'll be okay. That we really want to move through with the lens that allows us the space to see and speak the truth. And the truth is, there are things that are absolutely damning within and towards our community. There's also things that have made great progress, improvements that have been made, and transformative actions that have happened. And that too must be named. And so I think it is when we're in community, that's the power of being part of a multidisciplinary, cross-functional, and multi-identity community. That people's different perspectives help really give us a fuller view. Because the truth is, we all have blind spots. Oftentimes, I like to Rodney and I give the analogy of these kind of new cars that are out, and when you're in one of these new cars, if you try to get over without your blinker, you know what's going to happen. The light gonna start flashing, the seat may start shaking, right? Because it's alerting you of your blind spots. So my question is, when we are in community and with community, how are we alerted of our blind spots? And so it takes forums like the one that you've provided our community to be able to give these various perspectives, and not remembering and remembering that we have to begin to value the different perspectives that people are bringing. That us continuing to try to make one thing inferior so our thing can be superior will stifle us in so many ways. And when I say us, I mean us as people, as human beings in the Black community, white community. I love us talking about the Black community, but I don't want us to think that some of the things that we're going to mention that about the Black community are pathological, meaning just attributed to us because of our Blackness. We are Black, so yeah, we're going to talk about Black things, but these things are not necessarily unique as far as messing up, failing, winning, doing well, right? Those are things that happen within the human condition, but definitely there are some things specifically that I think that it is important for us to talk about, and address, and work collaboratively to get to it. So I say all that to say, Mr. Nelson, that I think that your critical analysis is really important, and that it's together that we can really kind of figure out the next steps.
So, what's in store for your company for 2024?
Well, our goal is very clear. I mean, we are working to help organizations and individuals operationalize equity. So that is what is in front of us. That is our passion. It's our purpose, and so that's what we will continue to do. And so what we mean by operationalizing equity is to help organizations move from just these concepts, these things that, especially now, as we've navigated as a nation through all of these eras and these really spark moments. I would say our latest spark moment has been the murder of George Floyd. That was another spark moment. But how do we work with organizations in putting these things into practice? So we really talk about becoming practitioners of equity. So it's one thing to know what the word is, to maybe even be able to use it correctly in a sentence. But the next thing is, how does it show up in how I show up? And so we work with organizations through a systems approach, because, oftentimes when we see problems, whether it's in our home, in our community, in our workplace, wherever it's at, most of us will use a behavioral analysis only to determine what we need to do differently, meaning just through behaviors. We believe that a behavioral analysis, in addition to a systemic analysis, is really how we can help transform and create a sustainable, positive change. And so that's the work that we do. That's what we've got our eye on and our hands in for 2024.
All right. In closing, what would you have to say to our general audience? And because we're on the business show, what would you have to say to our businesses that are listening to our show as it relates to your company and how they can contact you about your services and your website?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you asked this question earlier about, what have been some of the challenges. And as I talk about the challenges, I'll talk about our approaches to navigating the challenges. And all of it goes back to the power of relationship and community. So that is an important piece. I think honing in on your craft. So, I mean, Rodney and I have put in a lot of hours and work and studying and practicing walking this talk. And so really being able to have an offering that is, full of quality, that meets its value mark, and actually helps to do what it was intended to do. And so that is my responsibility as a professional. So continuing to deepen and sharpen my professional acumen, And then also, like I said, going back to community and collaboration, working with, I believe deeply that people need people. So relationships are important. And so continuing to build, relationships that have value. So those are things that are important to me. Those have also been things that have helped. As a business, we don't necessarily market. So it is word of mouth. Other people hear about our services and work because somebody told them. And so we don't take that for granted. We don't take, and that's a cultural thing for us as well. It's this kind of this griot culture of telling the story, telling the impact, and valuing it so much. You tell it to people that you care about. And so that has really been the energy of our company and the impact of our work. So we're very grateful for that. And then, of course, I talked about professional acumen, just really understanding business. So we've been able to partner with other really great professionals. So there's always that administrative piece. So making sure that all of your, just all the things that make a business, that those things are intact. And so just really being able to find really great partners and help in this work has been wonderful for us. So if there are organizations and individuals, if you're part of a community and you all are navigating change and you want to make sure that you're doing it in the most equitable and inclusive way that helps you center what your purpose and your mission is, we would love to talk to you and see how we could be supportive. We do something, what we call a readiness assessment to really walk with organizations to assess their readiness to change. So there's a process that we go through. So if people want to learn more about how we show up and work in partnership, they can go to our website, www.sophicSolutions with an S group.com. And on our website, or you can just Google Sophic Solutions, SOPHIC Solutions, and definitely check us out on our website to learn more.
All righty. This was one of my more enjoyable interviews. I'm serious, Stephenie. You know, I don't suck up the Negroes, but you have impressed me and maybe changed a little bit of uh, how I see things. You seem to be super positive, and I just think that I probably need this light that you shining to get me back uh, close to center line. And
That's pretty good.
I'd like to say this: it was a plum pleasing pleasure
All
having
right.
you on the show. Hold it, that's a line I stole from James Watts. He's the yeah, that's how he usually closes the show. I say, Jim, I'm stealing your line, make you mad. You can't do nothing.
No,
But
but can I say this though, Carlos? I think our off-camera discussion about racism and systemic racism. I think that is such a important conversation, and I appreciate you. I mean, I don't know if we talked that much on camera about it, but I think as a community, as Black people, because we're the direct recipients oftentimes of racism, we understand it in a very, tactical way. We understand how it impacts us. But I think there is power in us understanding it from a systemic way. Because without that understanding, we can begin to internalize the things that we see around us. And because it is so persistent and consistent in what we see, we can begin to believe that we alone are the problem. And that level of internalized racism ends up being another cog in this system that suppresses and oppresses people who look like us. And it can come from us through us. And so I just want to thank you and celebrate you and encourage you to continue to create opportunities for us to really understand through a historical analysis, through a racial lens, the origin and the impact of racism, so that we can then, with a conscious mind, say, how can I resist the invitation to be complicit within racism? What do I need to understand about white supremacy culture standards? How does that show up in me? What are the behavioral transformations that I need to make? And then also, what should and what do I need to demand and begin to promote the change within the systems that I'm a part of? So, in important conversation, we talked about it a lot off camera, but I just think that it is part of this thinking, it's part of our doing. It's complex, it's triggering, but it's also healing. It can be completely restorative if we allow it.
Well, as we always close, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.